This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses.
So I had a comment left on the channel yesterday, so I did that Quad Cortex gig report video, and it was left by a chap. I'll probably blank out his name because you probably don't want to. So he says, so you have basically every decent modeler on earth, you cannot settle on one because you have a YouTube channel and content in to create. And so we all have to stay on this everlasting journey with you. It is exhausting. For God's sake, just pick one and call it a day, and we will see you in 6 years. There is a massive cost of living crisis. People are struggling. Your gear fetishization and gear acquisition syndrome is so 6 months ago. Now, 6 months ago it became illegal to smack your kids in Wales, and I think that must be what he's referring to. So clearly Stu advocates for smacking your children, and also the search for Madeleine McCann stopped, which coincidentally when this chap also lost interest in gear, apparently. Strange coincidence. Anyway, so why do I make videos with more than one modeler? For views, partly, and partly because people have asked me to. So I started off with a Kemper, and I think in 2018 Line 6 actually sent me an HX Stomp because I did a video reamping through Helix Native when there was a Helix Native trial, and I put that up, and for some reason they thought they liked that. This was before I had any subscribers or anything, and really since then I've use the HX Stomp more or less every single day. Now, if I had to pick one modeler, I think most people can work out from the kind of the ratios on the channel. Regular viewers, I would suggest, will know that more often than not I'll be using a Helix. Now, the great thing I think about the Helix community is that there are a bunch of people on YouTube that will make videos. Ben Vesco, Steve Stilacci, Jason Sadites, Alex Price. There are others that I'll forget, and probably Sean Murray's done a few. The people that make these videos, and I think it's helpful to me as a Helix user to watch other videos that people have made and show how they're tackling certain things. Part of the reason, for instance, that I got a Quad Cortex again was because specifically I had said that there's no one really making videos with this specifically because they can't sell presets for it. And I thought that was a bit of a shame, And that's the reason, once Jordan Rudess sent me a message saying that he'd seen one of my videos, that I thought, okay, it's not necessarily the modeler that I choose to use every day, but there is, I think, about 10,000 of these units out there, probably more than that now, with people that aren't necessarily having people that are making regular videos with them that might be useful. And I thought, you know, I can do that. I'm not making money from anyone buying presets on it, but it's interesting to me as a piece of gear, and modelers are my main kind of gear interest, right? Now, you probably will also notice that in none of my videos do I suggest that you should go and buy any of these things, right? I do sometimes do a comparison where I say, well, between this and this, I might pick this one, and sort of pros and cons and that sort of stuff. But to me, also, what I try to get across is that pretty much any of these techniques will work with any modeler, and that's why you might see me building Andy Timmons presets with the Helix. You might see me exploring the same sort of ideas with the Nuix MG30. You might see me doing stuff with just VST plugins, which are new to me, where you don't have to buy any hardware. You also might have seen that I, on Saturday morning, did a video about the best free plugins that you don't have to spend any money on, or best free stuff that I think is useful as a guitarist. So I'm not saying that you should buy anything, and specifically I don't really deal with gear companies in that sort of way either.
For me, it's more about, you know, hey!
For me, it's more about having something to kind of play through, and people did ask me, you know, this is how this kind of happened organically anyway. I was creating tones on the Helix, and people would ask, how did you do that, or how are you creating these tones, or you know, what's in your path. That's how all of this kind of started anyway. That was the initial focus of the channel, alongside some jazz stuff that no one watched. And then from there, it's kind of organically built that people would say, okay, could you break down what you were playing here, or, you know, how do you think about legato? It's kind of all happened from there. Now, if you've got other things that you want me to talk about more on the channel, I'm happy to do so, but the modeler stuff, for me, keeps me interested every single day. There's loads that we can talk about within there, whether it's the history of certain specific pieces of gear within there. You know, with the Helix, I've done the series on the amps of the Helix, and like breaking down what the history of some of them are. For me, I find it interesting to learn some of that stuff. Hopefully some of you do as well. But equally, then all of the learnings from that could apply to any other modeler, whether it's a Fractal or Quad Cortex or whatever. I'm kind of agnostic about the modeler kind of supremacy race or whatever. I'm just sharing my experience with them, and part of that is that, yes, every time I have a gig, the first thing that I would grab would be the HX Stomp or HX Stomp XL, if you didn't already know that. If I had to pick one modeler, I've already done that in my personal life, and, you know, when I play a gig, that's what I use 9 times out of 10. Now, part of also of the journey of reviewing modelers, and people ask me to give an opinion on some of this stuff, is that I have to give a fair shot to the other stuff as well. So that's why I took the Quad Cortex out and thought, right, let's try and give this a fair shake. You know, I gigged the FM9 a couple of weeks before that at the Eden Project. Weird venue for a gig, but I think it's reasonable that people are asking about these pieces of gear. You know, like they're £1,600 or thereabouts, or 2,000 for an FM9. People, I think, are looking for people to share their experience with them, and also I think looking for people who aren't paid by those companies to share their experience with them. I think that's kind of fair, and hopefully a reason enough for some of these videos to exist. Now, you don't have to watch them all. As far as I'm aware, you're not being held down and made to watch them. The idea is that for me, I want to play guitar every single day, and by presenting a video about something, that gives me an opportunity to do that. Bear in mind also, there's at least 2 kind of lesson videos every week, probably more most weeks, or equally there's a whole bunch of videos that I've done talking about trying not to spend money on gear, right? This has been a journey that I've been on for about a year and a half now, where it kind of got to the stage where I was thinking, right, do I want all these boxes that do stuff, you know? And this is why I've talked about selling tons of pedals, and why you don't see many, if you've seen one sort of paid drive pedal demo on the channel, you're not going to see any more. specifically because I think there's plenty of other channels that can do that, and plenty of other channels that will do sponsored content from these modelling companies. It's not really what I need to do. The way that the channel works for me is that I just find something that I'm interested in, make a video on it, whether that's a legato pattern, whether it's legato licks from Matteo Mancuso, whatever it is, doesn't particularly bother me. I can be agnostic about the modelers, and I will tell you honestly, I think you can get great results out of pretty much all of them. And if you use the same techniques as I use in any of the videos with them, you'll achieve probably a tone which is mostly in that ballpark, and you could tweak from there. And I would encourage people to try that if you're using a modeler like the Head Rush that doesn't necessarily have the most active community. People still ask me, will I check out a Head Rush? People still ask me, will I check out various bits and pieces? I think it's not so much about gear acquisition syndrome for me on this channel. It's more about people trying to get a result with the modelers they're on. I think that might be why you're watching, or maybe you're watching to see what it's like to actually use the thing. I won't always be right about this stuff, but I'm trying to just show the things being used and how I use them. And I think that's what people come here for the modelling stuff. The reason I focused on the gear initially is because that gives people a reason to discover the channel. At this point now, I can pretty much make videos about what interests me as well. So that is why you see me doing videos on the 1975 or whatever I do a video on. It's more that I think these are things that have inspired me, my playing and all that sort of stuff. And if you're interested in the stuff on the channel, that's why that's there. Pick one and call it a day, I think is fairly good advice for anyone who's looking into this modelling stuff. I think it would be truly exhausting if you had to kind of follow the kind of marketing and the supremacy thing. So there are plenty of real musicians using Kempers. There are plenty of real musicians still using like Axe Effects 2 or Axe 8. I think you can really stick with a modeler and run it into the ground. On this channel as well, I've done videos looking at the Pocket Pod and comparing it to some tones from today. I think there is a big marketing push that the modern stuff is always going to be, you know, way better. And again, on this channel, I've been fairly agnostic about that and thinking, well, actually, has guitar tone really come forward that much, or were these things that we were using back in the day also really good? And what I find is that from playing around with all these modelers, that over time you start to get like a competency which can kind of get good results out of quite a lot of different things, even if it is older stuff, right? That's my opinion on that. So if you are someone out there who is not, for instance, creating stuff for a YouTube channel, then yes, sticking with what you have I think is pretty good advice. Equally for me, if I only ever made videos for the Helix stuff, then Jordan Rudess wouldn't have found a video of mine. And opportunities come from, you know, experimenting with different stuff, and I learn different things about even the units that I use all the time from experimenting with others. I think hopefully that's kind of fair. Talking of the cost of living crisis, yes, I think that's probably real for a lot of people, and equally that's why I don't advocate, and I said specifically when I got the Quad Cortex, this isn't a recommendation or a gear recommendation. I'm just showing you how I would do certain things on it, because people, as far as I was aware on YouTube, there weren't that many people kind of just doing preset building videos. That's what I'm doing. I'm not saying buy any of this stuff. And equally, I'm happy to kind of use some cheaper stuff as well. And you don't see me like advocating for going out and spending all your money on 2-rock amps and Fender custom shop guitars, do you? Or PRSs for that matter. So yeah, hopefully that sort of clears some of that up a bit. And again, this is what's been so good for me about the TrueFire sponsorship, is that it enables me to continue to kind of be a bit agnostic about some of this stuff, and I will continue to use these modelers and show you how I use them. And it doesn't have to be the case that I need to kind of pick one or the other, or, you know, be tempted by Line 6 or Neural, not that they want to talk to me about, you know, sponsored videos or anything like that, because I don't really need to, and I can keep making videos that are interesting to me and hopefully in turn slightly interesting to you, maybe. And there's plenty of stuff, you know, teaching, and it's what I've spent this morning doing, putting together 2 pieces of sheet music for my Patreon and also backing tracks. I mean, I work on this stuff, and it does take time. So hopefully some of you are here for the journey. I don't know, it's a bit to me like if you were a film critic and people are saying, well, yeah, you're watching every film, why don't you just pick one film? Well, a sort of food critic wouldn't eat at just one restaurant, would they? It wouldn't make sense. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. And also I think by showing you how the sausage is made, hopefully sometimes you can pick up a tip or two from these videos, and also people in the comments can be quite helpful as well sometimes. I'll catch you in another video soon, and keep up the good work. Cheers.